Happy 4th of July, everybody. Hope you're having a great holiday, a great week. This is the holiday where we celebrate our freedoms and our rights as Americans. Last year, I reviewed 1776 for 4th of July, and this year I wanted to do another one that uses 4th of July. It's not necessarily about the creating of America, but it is a lot more about America now, specifically tourism. Today, our movie in the middle is Jaws. Jaws is the iconic horror movie about a summer getaway called Amity Island that is plagued by a gigantic killer shark. It is directed by Steven Spielberg and stars Roy Scheider, Richard Dreyfuss, and Robert Shaw. I often forget that this movie actually is supposed to be a horror movie in line with movies like Alien and Predator and The Thing and The Fly, all those kind of 70s and 80s movies that are more about the monster in the house type situation, like hunting you. And I think that's because while half this movie is very scary, the other half is kind of nice. It's like a summer getaway. It's really fun. It makes you just kind of want to go to the beach. But for whatever horror they didn't have in the movie, that horror was made up making the movie. Because my God, they had so many problems. It was over budget. It was over scheduled. I mean, it was supposed to be maybe, I think, a 2-month shoot, and it ended up being 6 months. 6 months. And they shot it like half in the fall. This is supposed to be about a summer. They were writing the script out in the ocean. They were writing the script as they were shooting it. They had to write the ending as they were shooting it because they were out in the ocean and they just couldn't come up with how it was really supposed to go, especially considering the shark that they had, the mechanical shark, which they named Bruce, funny enough, wasn't working. As we all know, it worked out because it made it even scarier not being able to see the shark for most of this movie. Oddly enough, for as horrible as the set was at times, there's like 12 people in the credits. So like I said, it is a horror movie, but there's a lot of parts to it that are just really cool, very summery. I mean, even the costumes themselves, the mayor, Larry, a lot of his costume design was awesome. I mean, he even has like a suit jacket that's like gray and has anchors on it. And I think that they gave really good attention to detail when it came to that stuff because it really makes you feel like you just want to get to an island somewhere and just sit there and live there. I am not a huge summer person. I like the summer, don't get me wrong, but I love the fall. I am more of a chilly weather person just because the heat to me can sometimes be atrocious. So I'm not always a summer person, but every time I watch this movie, it makes me want to sit down and do nothing. And for those of you who know me, you know that it is impossible for me to sit down and do nothing. And for those of you who don't know, they actually did shoot this at Martha's Vineyard, and the really cool part about that is that they actually used a lot of the residents who lived there in the movie. Basically, most of the extras who lived there, whether they had lines or not, were in this movie, and a lot of them did a really good job. And then some of them did this.
A what?
I don't know why Steven Spielberg kept that in, but I'm glad that he did. And speaking of Steven Spielberg, obviously this was directed by him, and so the camera work is once again amazing. Actually, this was really only like the second or third movie he did, and it almost put him, no pun intended, into big hot water because of the fact that he was over budget and over schedule. And it was only due to two things that he was able to continue to work ever again. One was the fact that it did really well, and it actually ended up being really good. And two was the fact that the producers of the movie, I think it was Zanuck and Brown, they fought for him to Sidney Sheinberg, who was the head of Universal Studios at the time, and they just fought for him. They were like, give him just one more month, and it's going to be great. And of course, it turned out to be great. But he got lucky on that one. But it's because of the raw talent that he has. The camera work in this movie is once again amazing. I mean, just long takes that I don't even realize are long takes. The way that he focuses on certain shots and close-ups, the way that he moves the camera. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but in 70s movies, they really loved their telephoto super long zooms. And I personally think that it doesn't look that great. Although in this, Steven Spielberg uses it and somehow makes it work when he does it all the way out into the ocean, and it makes sense. So that's just one way that he took something that I hated about filmmaking in the 70s and made it good. And then, of course, he also has the iconic dolly zoom.
A what?
A dolly zoom. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically, you've seen it before, you just didn't know it was called this. It's when the background depth of field changes, but the subject in the foreground stays in the same spot. And it basically causes like this anxiety because like the background's getting farther away or closer, but the person's not moving, so it looks weird. And the way that you do this actually, if I have this right, is by zooming in or out, but then pushing the camera in the opposite direction, and it's very unsettling. And they use that in the one shot where the chief sees the shark attack the little Kittner boy for the first time. I say for the first time as if the Kittner boy had been killed multiple times. And where would I be talking about a Spielberg movie if I also wasn't talking about John Williams? We all know the score. It's one of the most iconic scores of all time, and rightly so. And of course, it's insane considering it's 2 notes. But it worked so well. He went up to Spielberg and said, I have the theme. Spielberg's like, great, what's the theme? He goes, it's 2 notes. Spielberg's like, seriously, what's the theme? He's like, I'm not kidding. And then he played it, and Spielberg's like, this is genius. And it was. It's so tense. I mean, just dun 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 dun. It's just so simple. Why didn't any of us think of this? But actually, although that is like the best part of the score, I personally like the other stuff better because again, that's more of that like summery, sitting on a beach, marina sort of feel to it. Just take a listen. It just makes you feel like you just want to get on a boat. I've never really had a huge desire to get on a boat, but now I do. I want to own a boat now and put on boat shoes and just stand there just because of the music. So in terms of the story itself, it is split into basically 2 halves, and this kind of format is in a lot of movies on a much bigger scale, like Gone with the Wind or Dr. Zhivago, and in this one it's a little bit of a smaller scale, in which the first half is more about the people as a whole, and all these characters, but it's in the background of a lot of people. And then the second half is more intimate and only about a certain number of people, and it's a little more it's tighter, and it feels a lot more claustrophobic. This movie is incredible with that because I love both halves basically equally because the first half's amazing because I've already said it, but it's just fun, the summery feel, and of course you get all the action with the shark and like all the intense scenes where it's killing everybody and they're like looking out for it, and then they even set up on the beach all of these precautions, but you don't know where it's going to be or who it's going to attack. But then the second half is for most people, probably even better because that's the part where they go out, they hunt the shark, and you have Quint. And man, these characters are just awesome. Obviously, you have Chief Brody, who is the chief of police, so he can do whatever he wants. And I love his character because in his authority, in his jurisdiction, he's pretty good at what he does. As soon as he gets outside his comfort zone, it's like, man, he's trying so hard, but he's just kind of lame at it. And I love it. When he gets on the boat with Quentin Hooper in the second half of the movie, you can tell he just has no idea what he's doing. But he's just there because he's the chief of police in charge of all this, and he's the one who's like, we need to take care of this. And it's so funny, but that's what makes the end even better when he's the one who blows up the shark. And he's the one who does it, and he just has to step up because literally nobody else is there anymore.
Smile, you son of a bitch!
Then, of course, you have Hooper and Quint, and I love both of them because they just get on each other's nerves so much, and it's so funny to see them fighting and just being very passive-aggressive towards each other because they're kind of 2 ends of the same spectrum. They are really well versed in the area of sharks and marine biology, but one is more in the field and the other one is more books and the science of it. And Richard Dreyfuss and Robert Shaw actually didn't like each other and were annoyed by each other on set, so that chemistry came out really well. But both of them are great. I mean, Hooper is so funny. Sometimes he can be over dramatic in a funny way, and then Quint is he's Captain Ahab, in Moby Dick, and the drive that he has, he goes insane later on, almost becomes a villain himself. That dynamic of the 3 of them on this ship, and just the way they moved around the ship, how the ship was set up, or I should say boat, the Orca, it's a little fishing boat basically, and just the way it was set up, and I loved it. It's all the little compartments and everything, especially the scene when they're inside at nighttime and they're kind of just bonding, like singing songs together and like showing each other tattoos and drinking and everything. That was a really great scene as well. But there's a character in this movie, Ellen Brody, played by Lorraine Gary. She is Chief Brody's wife, and for a lot of it, she's really cool. But man, there are these moments when it's like she just does something, and I'm like, wow. That was classic overacting, over dramatic. Like when she does this weird runaway thing, Or like when one of her kids gets attacked, and obviously she's going to be very distraught, but the kid gets attacked, and she's like, he's dead, he's dead. I'm like, God, tone it down.
He's dead.
No, he's not. He's in shock.
The reason that she's in it, though, is because she is married to Sid Sheinberg, or was. I actually don't know if he's still alive. But he, obviously, like I said before, was the head of Universal Studios. So... And the last character that I want to bring up is Larry Vaughn, who is the mayor, and very much depends on the people's money to run this town. 2 years ago, when COVID hit, I rewatched this movie, just because I watch it every year, and there were some striking similarities between this movie and the COVID situation in America. All of this movie, I never realized it, but all of this movie is, it's not that bad. We're taking care of it. The shark is fake news. We're opening up the economy. We need the economy to open, so it, maybe a couple people got injured, but whatever. It's not that big of a deal. But I will say, the actor who played him, I actually forgot his name. I'll put it in the edit here when I'm editing it. But he did a really good job, though, honestly, because he's not a villain per se. I mean, he's just a guy who's trying to keep the town afloat, but in a way that's kind of asshole-ish. But especially this one scene where they're trying to convince him that the shark is huge and they need to close the beaches. That's just, again, the way that's shot, too, because it's low angle. And for some reason, it's like almost cut off all the heads, but they don't. And I don't know if that's supposed to mean something. I mean, maybe the fact that it cuts off the heads. I don't know. And, of course, the horror of it is also amazing. Just every time it's like the suspense of, like, something's coming. It's actually, fun enough, more scary in the beginning. Later on, they actually have signals as to when you know the shark is coming. And again, it still makes it very scary. And then there is that jump scare, that famous jump scare in the middle of the movie. And honestly, I don't think it really needed to be that overdone or that in your face. Like, I think the amount that they did was just perfect. Lastly, there's just a lot of great moments in this movie. I talk about this a lot with a lot of Steven Spielberg movies, but this one in particular has a lot of great little moments that you could miss if you're not really thinking about it or that you're not listening. One of my favorites is the scene with Chief Brody and his son, where Brody's at the dinner table and he is just done. He's done with everything. And the son starts to mimic all the little things that he does. And this kind of goes along again with that theme that I was talking about in the Jurassic Park movies with the father figure and Steven Spielberg having some troubles with his dad growing up. And so once again, you kind of see that there's something to do with the dad and a son in this movie, even if it's just a little moment. But it's a great moment. Another moment that I really like, and it's one you would miss if you didn't even know it was in there. It's just this one line when they say that they're going to close the beaches. Somebody yells out in the back, 24 hours is like 3 weeks.
24 hours is like 3 weeks.
I also just have a lot of like little fun facts that I was going to try to weave in here, but I'm just going to list them because there's so many. And, this might be one of the movies that I know the most about in terms of behind the scenes. And I just kind of wanted to share these because, if you know them, great. But if you don't, they're kind of funny. So I just want to ramble them off. In the scene where Chief Brody is slapped by Alex Kittner's mom, that was not known to Roy Scheider that was going to happen. That slap, his reaction is real. In the scene where Robert Shaw's character Quint is doing his monologue about the USS Indianapolis, he actually did that scene for real, drunk, the first time that they did it, and he absolutely butchered it. So he did it the next time, stone cold sober, and he nailed it. That is just a chilling scene. This is actually the first movie that created the term blockbuster because people literally lined up around the block to see it. It was ginormous. And of course, as many people as there were to actually go see this movie, that many people were not in the water for at least the next summer. Towards the end of the movie, Matt Hooper goes into the water and then the shark attacks him and he gets away. Originally, he was actually supposed to die, but the shot that they got with the shark from far away attacking the cage was so good, they wanted to keep it in the movie, but there was no dummy in the cage at the time, so they had to make it look like he had escaped. And actually, I like that better, because I like that he ended up living, because he was a good guy. When the shark blows up and half the carcass is falling down into the water and you see the blood coming out, there is this kind of this big sound that sounds like a roar or something. You're not exactly sure what it is. and it is actually the sound of the truck dying because it was basically a character in Steven Spielberg's Duel. When it goes down the hill and it's just crashing, they layered that over the sound of, like, or basically made it feel like it was muffled, like it was underwater as the shark is dropping down. And lastly, and this isn't really a fun fact as it is so much a fun quote that I love from this movie, or at least the behind the scenes of this movie, but Roy Scheider made this quote, and it is one of my favorites of all time about filmmaking.
It's not the time it takes to take the take that takes the time. It's the time it takes between the takes that takes the time that takes to take.
Of course, where would I be if I talked about this movie and didn't mention you're gonna need a bigger boat?
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I don't know what else to say about it. I just had to mention it because it's like one of the biggest movie lines of all time. And it's funny though, because then he says it a second time. He's like, "You're gonna need a bigger boat, right?" But the thing is now that it's such an iconic line, it's kind of funny to me that he says it that second time, because it's almost like, "You're gonna need a bigger boat," and it's like this big line, right? And then the next time he's like, "We're gonna need a bigger boat, right?" And it's like, okay, all right, very good. You said the line. Don't ruin it. That's what it feels like to me now every time I hear it again. So overall, Jaws is an amazing movie. Once again, I said in the Jurassic Park movie reviews that Steven Spielberg, his movies are like candy, and with this one, I would say that's maybe the same deal, except I think it's less of one that kids would enjoy as much, like Jurassic Park or Indiana Jones or E.T. This one, I had to be a little bit older to appreciate it more. And that's not saying that it's not fun or anything. It's just, it's not as visually like Jurassic Park or E.T., where there's like things kids can attach to. This one I think is more for adults and all these little moments that I was talking about. But I love Jaws. It's amazing. It's thrilling. It's fun. It's very summery. I love watching it around 4th of July and just the summer as a whole. I could watch this over and over and over again for all the funny moments, the characters, the heartwarming moments. I love Jaws. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 4.
Making it my next top shelf movie.
Well, guys, let me know what you thought of Jaws in the comments below. Let me know also what you think of the sequels if you've seen them. I know it has a couple, and it's got Jaws 2 and Jaws 3D, which is worse. And then, of course, the infamous Jaws 4, The Revenge. God, that movie is just so bad, and I've never even seen it. But luckily, this is one of those franchises that just never got a full reboot, which is a good thing. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I hope you have a very happy and safe 4th of July, however you choose to celebrate it. And as always, keep your hopes high, your stress low, and movies right in the middle. I'll see you guys later.